Hey friends, in this week's video, I'm showing you what I'm making for dinner each night of the week as a busy homeschooling mom of 7 children. So come along with me and I'll show you what I'm making for dinner every night. Happy Monday. This evening we're gonna have some salmon. Got this from Costco. I've thawed it out. I'm gonna cut it up. It has the skin on it. We're gonna cook that up for supper tonight. And we're gonna have some brown rice. I'm gonna do this whole pound of brown rice. I just cook it like pasta in lots of water with salt for about 30 minutes and drain it. And then vegetables are going to be some zucchini that I needed to get used up, and then some asparagus. So we're gonna get all this cooked up and have supper on the table. I decided to go ahead and roast the zucchini and the asparagus so it would be very hands-off. I'm just adding some avocado oil and plenty of salt and then throwing those right into the oven. I cut the salmon into somewhat equal pieces and then I'm going to get those seasoned up. I just used that Kinder seasoning that I've shown in past videos and it worked out perfectly. So I'm getting those into the pan with some avocado oil and those turned out delicious. At the same time I've got my rice going so it'll all get done about the same time. Then I'm popping some garlic into the pan. I'm gonna add the salmon back in and with a little bit of butter, and all of that's gonna add some extra flavor and keep those from drying out. Okay, tonight for supper we're gonna have some steak and chicken kebabs. So I've got my sticks soaking and I'm gonna get the meat put on there. I've got some peppers and onions cooking up in the pan. Here I'm gonna roast some squash and some cherry tomatoes, get those all roasted up. And these can all the vegetables can go either on basically we're gonna have naan-wiches. So I'm gonna put everything on a naan bread. And this can either be sides, the roasted vegetables, or it can also go on the naan-wich. So putting some squash and some cherry tomatoes in the oven to roast. I'm essentially making a shawarma kind of seasoning. So I'm adding this za'atar blend that I was given one time. And then I'm gonna add some curry powder to that and kind of make a makeshift shawarma seasoning. So this meat is all going on my little indoor grill that's a griddle on the other side. I can link that below. And it grills up really nicely. All the meat turned out perfectly. So tonight we're gonna have some meatloaf. I still have quite a lot of ground beef from a local farm. This is grass-fed ground beef from a local farm that we got half of a cow from way back in December. So we're coming up on a year, and I only have a few things left, but I have quite a bit of ground beef. So I'm trying to do something with that every week. If you've seen previous videos, I've done a few meatball recipes, and today I'm working on a meatloaf. So this is what's going in it. Some crackers, that's my, what I use instead of breadcrumbs. I always have crackers on hand, so typically if something calls for breadcrumbs, it's gonna be crackers for me. Some mozzarella cheese, an egg, some ketchup. Gotta have ketchup in your meatloaf. A little bit of Dijon, a little bit of Worcestershire, some garlic powder, some onion powder, and some Italian seasoning. Now, typically I like to cut up some onions and caramelize them and then throw some garlic in there. So I would have fresh garlic and onions in this, but it's getting a little late tonight, so I'm just going to go with some onion powder and garlic powder. So we're gonna throw all this together. I'm gonna top it with a little bit of ketchup, and then we're gonna throw that into the cast iron pan and into the oven. I'm gonna throw the meatloaf into the oven, and then we'll get started on our mashed potatoes and our vegetable side, which will be green beans tonight. So into the oven, I've thrown the meatloaf, topped it just with some ketchup, traditional, and then I put the green beans around the side. So I put some avocado oil on the green beans and tossed them in that, and then put some salt and some garlic powder. So just very simple seasoning, but seasoned it. Potatoes in the pot and putting in some cold or room temperature water over top of these. That's how you want to start out to make really good mashed potatoes. So I'm going to get my mashed potatoes going, and my meatloaf has been in for about 30 minutes. So I'm going to check on that. It should be probably another 15 minutes before it's done. So the meatloaf will be done a little ahead of the mashed potatoes, but it can sit in the warm oven for a little bit and we'll be fine while I'm waiting for the mashed potatoes to finish up. And then we'll have everything served. Then I've put a good bit of salt into the water here, and I find that if you salt the water really, really well for your potatoes, the potatoes will absorb the salt and you really won't need to salt them when they're finished. Of course, taste and see, you know, what your salt preference is, but typically I don't really have to add much salt at the end if I salt the water really well, because the potatoes absorb it. I've drained the potatoes, got butter and some cream cheese in the pot. Potatoes are gonna go on top of that, and then a little garlic powder. And then I'm going to mix it in with a hand mixer to mash everything. And then after that, I'm gonna add some sour cream. Here are the potatoes, they're finished. Turned out beautifully. I already tasted some and it did not need any more salt. So that's a really good trick, to just salt the water and you don't have to salt the potatoes. They are delicious, nice and whipped and creamy, no lumps. I've found that if the potatoes are lumpy, the mashed potatoes, you probably didn't cook the potatoes long enough. So that's a trick. Also, if your potatoes are too old, and like a little bit of sprouting is fine, but if there's a ton of sprouting and they're just kind of old and a little squishy, that's how you get gummy mashed potatoes. So you have to be careful about that. Those are my mashed potato tips, free of charge. All right, it's Thursday and I just got home from Costco. So tonight for supper, it's gonna be this yakisoba from Costco, lots of veggies in here. I may add some more that I have in my refrigerator to that to bulk it up even a little bit more for my family. So we're going to just have that tonight and call it good. So in some avocado oil on my pan, I throw in the veggies first, get those cooking up. Then I'm adding in some mixed vegetables just to bulk it up a little bit, add a little extra nutrition. So I'll get that going. Next is the chicken. So I'm gonna add all of the chicken in here next and get that cooking up. And then I'll add in the noodles after that. Now I'm adding in the sauce that came with it, and then I just have to pretty much stir it together and it's ready to go.
I know where a cow comes from. A cow comes from a cow.
For Friday's dinner, I'm using up some leftovers. So I had some leftover roasted chicken. So I'm gonna pick all of that off of the bone. And I have 2 prepped pie crusts. So I'm gonna use that and make a chicken pot pie. Here's what we're working with. Some leftover chicken, a couple of prepped pie crusts, some canned bone broth, some flour, butter, cream cheese, sour cream, garlic powder, salt, Italian seasoning mix, and we'll also put some pepper in there. And that's what we need to make our chicken pot pie. I forgot to mention that we would also need an onion and some mixed vegetables to go into our chicken pot pie. I'm cooking up the onions in some butter, adding in a little bit of salt there, and then I'm adding in the flour to create the gravy for inside the chicken pot pie. I'm also adding some garlic powder. A lot of times I would just add some fresh garlic, but this time I decided to just go with garlic powder to make it easy. So I'm stirring it together, and this needs to cook for a couple of minutes to cook out the flour, and then I'll add in the bone broth. But first I'm going to add in my Italian seasoning, get everything seasoned up, and allow those herbs and spices to bloom a little bit in the fat, and then we'll add in the bone broth after that. While my gravy is still thickening up, I'm going to start working on the pie crust. So I already had these made ahead of time, so I'm going to put the first one into my pie plate here, and I've got the sides all folded down, and then it's ready to add in the gravy. So now I'm going to get all of my dairy in here, starting with the cream cheese. Then I'm going to add in about a cup of sour cream, get all of that mixed in. It turns into this beautiful, creamy, luscious gravy. And then to that, I'm ready to add in my chicken that I've chopped up and my vegetables. The vegetables were frozen, so it's going to take a little bit of time for those to cook through and heat everything back up. Here is the finished gravy on the stove. This was enough for 2 chicken pot pies, so half of it's going in my chicken pot pie, the other will go into the freezer. Here is my filled pie crust. So now I'm going to put my second pie crust on top, and I'm trying to do this with one hand while I film. It's a little bit difficult, but I managed to make it happen. So I'm gonna get that all folded under and go ahead and put some slits in the top and then pop that into the oven. Was inspiring and helpful for you some way, some ideas about things to make for dinner, even when you're really busy. Please subscribe for more. I make videos about homeschooling, homemaking, and family discipleship. See you next time.